Welcome to the Run Your Day podcast, a show dedicated to helping you expand your capacity, take your life in every area to an entirely new level, and creating a day and a life by design. Here's your host, Dan Hafner. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Run Your Day podcast. As always, your host, Dan Hafner, here today with you. I have a special guest. This is going to be a little bit longer of an episode here, but our guest today is Mr. Jim Lynch. He is the producer and creator of the Feel Good Running podcast. He has graced us with his presence and his time for this episode here, so I'm really excited to talk with him a little bit. So I guess without any further ado, introduce yourself to the folks, Jim.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. My name is Jim Lynch. I host a podcast called Feel Good Running. I'm a runner, run 101 marathons, certified finisher in all 50 states, race director, moved back to Denver in February from Maui. I was a race director for the Maui Marathon and put on a lot of other races out there. And now I am a runner and I'm enjoying my running. I'm on a 2-person relay team and we're doing what's called the Virtual Colorado Trail Challenge, which started June 1st and it goes through September 3rd and it's 500 miles. And let's see, this is the 14th. We are at 458 miles. So we only have something like 42 miles to go. And then we finished very early, but it was a lot of running.
Yeah. So it's a relay?
Yeah. Well, you can do it solo or you can do a 2, 3, or 4-person relay. And there's some people that have finished already that did the solo. And we just decided, my friend and I, she's a doctor, and we decided to do it as a relay.
So you can both run like at the same time, or your miles get added up, or how does that work?
Yeah. Can run at the same time, or if she's out there somewhere running, or you can even trail hike if you want to, because the Colorado Trail is, it's very technical in certain areas, so you aren't running that whole trail.
Yeah.
So you can do that too, but we're both runners, so we've run most of it.
Very cool. Cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of years of experience on me. That's for sure.
One foot in front of the other, man.
I know, right? I know. So what, I guess before we go further into the podcast, tell us a little bit more about your backstory. Like how long have you been running? Ever since you were a little kid, or did you pick it up later in life? Or?
Oh, no. When I was a little kid in high school, I was smoking cigarettes. Yeah. Running. Yeah. I think I was in gym class and we had to run a mile, and I thought, this is ridiculous. Who in the world's going to run a mile? I had friends that did track, and I look at them like, well, why do you want to do that? What is that all about? I don't know. But I actually started getting into running because of my brother. He was actually heavy. He was about 240 pounds. He smoked cigarettes. This is in Erie, Pennsylvania, though, in the same state that you're at.
Yeah. Side note, we're both from Erie, Pennsylvania, which is
that's right.
Pretty neat.
That's
anyway,
right.
Continue the story. Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a little bit, I guess. And he went down to the local YMCA because his doctor said, if you don't start exercising, you're not going to be around very long. And he started a weight thing, didn't work, but he saw runners running around this little oval track in the basement of this YMCA. It's like a dungeon. And I watched this guy transform from being 240 pounds to being this specimen of health. He had ripped abs and he was a fast runner. And I said, and I was young, I was in my early 20s at that time. I said, I want to follow that plan. And so I started toying with it for a while and, would do it here, do it there and all that. But it wasn't until about 1986 that I got serious about running. I moved out to Los Angeles and I started running, and he challenged me to do the LA Marathon in 1989. And I said, all right, how far is that? He goes, 26.2 miles. I go, perfect. No idea what the hell 26.2 miles was at that time. But I trained for it and I finished my first marathon and I felt phenomenal and I got the bug and I never stopped from there and just continued to run. And then it just accelerated as years went by. And it became my passion, my love. And especially when I got into running groups, I met so many friends, and all my friends now, they're all runners. I mean, I have some that are outside of the running community, but running is my life, and it's my passion, and it's my love, and every realm of it, from race director to, to just running to just watching people come across the finish line and doing things they never thought they could do. It's amazing.
That kind of, I guess, answers the next question. That's really cool to hear because that's pretty clear why you started a feel good running podcast. Because I think everyone just listening now started to feel pretty good about your story because that's pretty inspirational. That's really cool.
Oh, thanks. And, I don't know how I got started with feel good running, or what was the trigger point. I think I was looking for something additional to do. And I started I started listening to podcasts, and I thought it was really cool. And you could go on and you could search your genre. And I put in running one day and these podcasts popped up and I thought, wow, I can do this. I got a lot of experience. I'm not somebody who's just buying a microphone and talking about running and only have done a marathon. I mean, I got a lot of experience, so I'll give it a try. Hardest friggin' thing I ever did in my life, these podcasts. You have to learn how to do them. They're easier now because they've come out with equipment that you can do. But I had to learn the equipment, and I had to learn how to interview people, and I had to learn how to edit, and I had to learn how to market. And I'm still terrible at marketing and still trying to figure that out. But it is a lot of work. People just can't put a microphone in front of their face and expect, hundreds of people to download. It takes time to build ththese things.
It is. And then I kind of went down the same path when I started this Run Your Day podcast because that was me. I was the guy that you just described that was like had no experience, and I had this voice one day that was just like, start a podcast. Like, you got a lot to say, just share stuff. And that's what I did. I just bought I didn't have this cool Yeti microphone. I had like a cheap $20 microphone and I was just talking. And then I ran into those problems too of how do I continually produce? How do I edit? How do I market? How do I do all these different things? And I think you have what, about coming up on 30 episodes right now?
Yeah, my next one will be released next Tuesday and it'll be number 30.
Okay. So yeah, but you have much longer episodes, right?
In most
So
cases, they're long, especially when I interview somebody,
yeah,
because I like to really dive deep and research that person or what that person does and make sure. I think the worst thing you can do is just invite somebody on and then you don't know anything about them.
yeah.
When you know more about them than probably they know about them, it's pretty good to be ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, okay, that's that's some really cool stuff. Now, um what are your plans? What are your plans for Feel Good? Like what hopes and dreams do you have for it for the future?
Well, to go back when I started it, I looked at some of these other podcasts, and there's some really good ones out there, and there's different categories of running podcasts. There's people that like to talk about training. There's people that like to talk about injuries, like Doc on the Run, I think is his podcast. He's a doctor and he does, running injuries. That's what he specializes in. And then there's people that like to talk about ultra races,
Mm-hmm.
and they're ultra runners. It's a whole different segment, and this and that. And I was thinking, well, I looked at a lot of them, and I said, what do I want to do? Well, I'm I'm really a believer in people that have had challenges in their lives, that may have gone through a divorce or maybe a drug issue, or something tragic in their life, or something that has really brought them down to the lowest denominator, and they found running, and their story is just absolutely amazing, how running has not only enhanced their life but also saved their life. And that is what I wanted to do about Feel Good Running. Yeah, I'm going to have regular, famous runners on there from time to time and this and that. But really, I'm looking for the story of somebody who has found running and it saved their lives. I don't know. I think it's episode number 12 of mine. There's a woman in there named Bonnie um, Vandera, and her story is just incredible, what she went through and still going through. But running has really saved her.
Wow.
She's an amazing person. And when you listen to the story, you'll be blown away, first of all, by what happened, because it was really horrific. But how she's struggling through life right now and still running, not running, but kind of walking and trying to get into running again is amazing. That's what I look for. And that's
That
why I feel good running.
that's really really cool because like you said, it's all about. It sounds like you really have found a really good area to focus on, because it's those man, it's those like I hate to use the pun, but those feel good stories that they really motivate and inspire people. Um,
And especially people that are not elite runners, just everyday runners that are
yeah,
out there. They're never going to win a race. They're never going to, you know, be in the newspaper for anything. They're just out there for themselves to improve their life. And that's so remarkable. I
yeah.
really love those stories.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because I kind of lost my thought there. I had it written down here, but and that's kind of what that's a good segue into my next piece here because that's really what this show is for the everyday people. We don't have a lot of the show is just me talking through a lot of the challenges and the the stories of my life and how they relate to us inside of not only running but in our fitness but in our business and our relationships. um, so I mean, I guess for the runners that listen to this episode, right, what would you say to the beginner, the beginner, somebody like you going back, um, before you found running or before you were inspired to do this? Like, what would you say to the beginner out there that's just like you struggle to get motivated or you just can't seem to find that consistency or anything like that? Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I do. At the end of my podcast, I use a tag that I say, just show up
Hmm.
and always feel good about your running. But the just show up part is really important. When you first start, and I've seen this before in so many in the running groups that I've been with, where people will come in and be really nervous. They don't know what they're doing. They never really ran before, but they want to get into running. Well, you just show up, go out there and get it done. It's not going to be a pretty picture the first 3 to 6 months that you're running. But if you're consistent and you are really serious about it, you might start off maybe hardly being able to run a quarter of a mile. And then you'll keep doing it. And then you might get up to a half a mile. Then maybe you'll get to a mile. And it's really hard when you're doing this by yourself. Maybe find a friend that's a runner. And if you can't find a friend, find a running store that has a running group. And I know a lot of them are not operating right now because of the pandemic. But when that comes back, when we're able to go back to our normal life again to a degree, find a running store. They always have running groups. Even some taverns have little running groups in the summertime if you live in a snow belt area
Mm-hmm.
or a place that snows, but other cities that don't probably have them all year round. Go online, see what goes on out there and get involved. Because when you find somebody else that runs, that's going to motivate you. And I've seen it happen where people have started and they found a friend, and that friend has motivated them to the point where they run together and he or she does their first race. And it's the most incredible thing you could ever imagine, is seeing somebody who never thought they could do it cross the finish line of a race. And anybody can do it. Of course, if you have health issues or something like that, you need to check with a doctor first just to make sure it's all okay.
Mm-hmm.
But just show up and get out there and do it. It's going to really change your life. I've seen it change so many lives.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think I'm a member of several different running group, like Facebook groups. And, lately I've actually found myself being a little bit more of a quote unquote stalker than a participant, just out of curiosity. And I see what you're saying happen a lot. I see so many people, I think so many people are so self-conscious. People will show up and be like, "Hey, I'm a first-time runner. Where should I start?" And I'm like, first of all, it's really broad, and I feel like that's not the best place to ask for advice. But I think, like you said, it just comes down to just showing up. Just um, figuring out what consistent patterns work for you, because there's so many people out there that will say, hey, you got to do this, and you got to get these shoes, and you got to do this type of thing, and it's like there's so much noise out there that you have to find what works for you. And I went down this path for a long time of trying to follow different programs or use different apps or do different things, and like once I just found like the rhythm that worked for me, I found consistency, because I've always been that type of person that was I run, and then I stop, and then I pick it back up, and then I stop again. You know what I mean? So once I found my own rhythm, I started to be consistent. You know.
There's 3 points that I like to make, and you make some good points. First of all, I'm old school. And so I keep forgetting about this virtual world out there of running with Strava and Garmin and whatever else is out there. But those are good things. Those are good things for new runners to get involved with. If you don't have a running group or a friend that you want to run with, hop on to one of those and start getting excited about running through that. So that is one thing. Number two, get some shoes. Don't just put on your old tennis shoes that you have sitting in the closet and go out and run. I know it's a technical world out there. When I first started, there was only a couple types of running shoes out there. Nothing like now, where it's just so engineered, each brand and each model. But find the right shoe for you. Go to a running store. You can get on a treadmill, and they'll look at your gait and your pronation and all that, and direct you into whatever shoe it would work for you. And the third thing is don't get technical about running. I mean, I see so many people that they got to go on their Garmins, and they got to have this pace, and their heart rate has to be this much, and they have to do this, and it's all technical, and that just gets cluttered. Just put on your shoes and go out and run. Later on, if you want to get technical and look at your pace and heart rate and all that other stuff, do it. But just keep it simple, especially when you're starting out.
100%. I mean, I think because I'm more of that person that when I go for a run, like I do love to track with my phone, but I'm not the guy constantly looking at it. Like I want to know my mileage, like pretty exact, because I'll go back over the weekend and analyze how many miles I did, what my pace has been, and things like that. And that's kind of the balance I've found to, like you said, to not be like, oh my God, I'm 30 seconds behind, but
Right.
also being like, okay, I know, like I ran 20 miles this week. I need to up, by 10%. I want to run 25 next week or whatever it might be, So, and it's funny you mentioned that because, I believe I've told you about the app that I have called Runwage, which is kind of it's all tied in with this podcast and everything. And that's actually one thing that I've meant to do and include in that is a group and a social aspect of it, to kind of either let people create um, their own groups or just get people to set up groups in different parts of the country or whatever, at least virtually. It's never been something that I've gone on, but I'm kind of considering doing that. Maybe you're listening to this inside of the Runway app, and it might be coming soon. Who knows? But yeah,
That's awesome.
there's a lot of different things that you can do, and I guess that's another good segue here into like kind of the last part of our podcast here is, what do you think with all the changes in the pandemic and COVID-19 and all this craziness, like what have you seen that's changed inside of the running world, and what do you think is going to happen over the next year, 6 months to a year, whatever?
Oh man, it's changed it a lot. It's all just every day more races have been canceled.
Mm-hmm.
New York is down, Chicago's down, Boston's down, Cincinnati Flying Pig is down. Los Angeles did they run it? Yeah, they ran it. That was right before the pandemic. So they were good this year because that was early March. But you don't have a lot of races to choose from. And it's kind of a catch-22, especially for a new runner, because there's so many new runners joining the running world now. But all those, options for them, like go to a running store or get it with a running group or run a race or whatever, are not there available for them right now. You got all these virtual races, and I can't say that I'm a big fan of virtual races, but I am of the longer ones because that gives you a goal, like the one that I just talked about at the beginning of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We have been doing this since June 1st. So that's a nice summertime goal. So, as when we get out of this, I don't know what it's going to be like. Being a race director, there's a lot of components to putting on a race. People have no idea what it takes to put on a marathon, especially an international marathon like Maui, where you have people coming in from 19 different countries. I mean, I could just sit here and go for a whole podcast and talk to you about it.
I can imagine.
But, some of these races are not going to survive because they don't have the funds to hold them, to cancel what they did this year. They may already have a bunch of supplies for this year, like the shirts and medals and all that they can't get rid of. They're all going virtual. They're just trying to make some money off of these things. That's why, and they deserve to. What's it going to look like during a race? What are the volunteers going to be required to do? Can they hand you a cup of water like they used to at the races, or not? Maybe they just have to have a table set up and you're on your own to grab a cup of water. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they won't even have water because they're afraid of any type of virus, and you have to bring your own water. I don't know how that's going to work. Volunteers, where you're most likely going to have to wear a buff or something at the start line. There's no way that you're not going to be required to do that, at least until there's a vaccination. Spectators out on the course, don't know how that's going to take place. You have all these people. You look at Boston and Chicago, where they have New York that have thousands of spectators, hundreds of thousands of spectators. How's that going to work in the future? There's so much grappling that these race directors are looking at right now. Now, there are a couple races that are still on, like up in North Dakota, Fargo, and what's the other one up there? Bismarck. Those two are still on because they have a very low case of coronavirus up there. Not agreeing with this one, but Omaha, Nebraska said we're going forward with our race on September 10th or 11th. I don't agree with that one. I think they're doing a disservice because that's still in a hotbed in the Midwest area. I think any race director that wants to keep a race going maybe out of desperation at this point. That's in a more high case area.
Yeah.
But I think once we come out of all this, I think it's going to be we're still going to have a very strong industry. I hope running stores make it. I am actually interviewing the owner of some of the major running stores here in Denver tomorrow. And I've studied this, and I got to ask him what he thinks about for the future of running stores, mom and pa especially. Or
Yeah.
is it just going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods or, Roadrunner Sports where you just order the stuff online, or Running Warehouse? I don't know. I'm going to be interested to get his opinion, but
Yeah.
I think we have a good future. We can run. I mean, it all basically is we're putting one foot in front of the other. So, these are other added things, but you need motivation to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I guess two things that came up in my mind right there. As far as the running stores, first of all, I was actually doing some research around here in Harrisburg, where I now live, and there's because it's crazy to see how it's affected every business, right? Because every business has had to update things on their website or their operations, and I think there's I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. There's a running store here, not too far from my new house, and that was reading through an interview they did on the local news and about how they're changing things and all that different stuff. So they're having to adjust just like everyone else, but they're part of a franchise, so they're not like a mom and pop thing. So I thought that was really interesting.
Like a fleet feed or something like
That's
that.
what it was, a fleet feet. Yes, you're right. You're right, man. I completely had a brain fart there. Um, but then, yeah, the second thing was I found it really incredible. Like as March and April and May kind of happened, and you saw all these different shifts towards like, you know, everyone did online grocery pickup. Walmart went way through the roof, right? You had Amazon. Everybody was buying stuff from home. All that stuff went through the roof. You had the Wayfair stuff. I know Wayfair is under a lot of scrutination. I'm not this has nothing to do with the child whatever thing. It's just
I
like,
don't even know about that.
well, I'm just the caveat. I guess I don't care if I include or not. There's a big thing going around the internet now about whether they involved in child trafficking and all this different stuff. But like right when the pandemic hit, people were like, oh, we need to take care of our home because we're here all the time. So their stock went way up. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was really interesting to see the huge explosion of virtual races and um, just online or even like mobile apps and online workout type program things. Um, those were that was incredible, and I don't have any like updated numbers on anything that kind of happened there, but I read article after newscast after newscast of just like how many people were flocking to those types of solutions because they couldn't go to the gym, you know, they weren't even allowed to leave their house, so you couldn't really run outside. Um, so it was really interesting, and I think a lot of that's been relaxing. I see people out running without masks all over the place. I mean, I just moved from West Virginia. I'm here in PA, and I personally, when I run outside, I don't have a mask. Do you?
I take a buff with me, and if I see people passing, I'll pull the buff up. But
Okay.
but it's hard. It's hard to breathe with a mask on.
Yeah.
Um, but the buff, it serves its purpose, and in my opinion, it's more of a courtesy to
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
That's pretty
100%. Yeah.
much it. It's kind of freaky when you're running. You probably notice this too. I'll be running or coming up on somebody that's coming the other way, whether they're walking or running. And now because of this virus, people are, justifiably concerned, and they'll go off the path to avoid you and turn their head. And you start getting a complex out there going, am I that ugly? People are just kind of turning their head or what? But I understand, they want to be safe, and it's scary stuff.
Yeah, I've never had that happen. I've had a couple people yell at me because I wasn't wearing a mask when I wasn't running, like in a store or something like that. I've had that happen, but not not anything like that. So, but it's in, I mean, we're kind of getting a little off topic with all that, but
Yeah.
it's just like anything else when you talk with people about this. It's just, there's so many things you don't think about, like you said, with all the race directors and getting people in, and crowds, and all just, there's so many different things. You just, in a way, I think it's good because it forces us to think differently and how things can be different. But at what point is that just too stressful? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it just can be.
Well, you have to put a race on. You have to have volunteers, and you have to have the adequate supplies for the runners. And that's where the rub comes in. What are you going to be able to do in the future as a race? What are you going to be able to provide to a runner to be sure that they're safe and that you're following any type of guidelines that are required for large crowds of people? How is that all going to work? Don't
Yeah.
know. I do want to make one point of going back to running stores. People don't I've seen this happen where people will go to a running store and try on some shoes. They'll find one that they like and they don't buy it. This is a local running store. Because what they'll do is they'll go online and they'll shop for it, and maybe they'll save $20 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they can change their frame of mind and think about what the running store does for them, it's there in their community. They most likely are your hub for picking up a race packet for a race. So they work with the local races when that's happening. They put on a lot of these running stores have a group run, and sometimes at the end of the run they provide snacks and stuff like that. So they're providing a service to the running community. Um, you know, they did do a lot of things to support the community, and I think especially now, stay away from the big box stores and really support your local running store. They need you more than ever right now. I mean, they're going through some tough times. No races, no foot traffic. I mean,
100%.
no foot traffic. So support them. Even if you have to pay $20 more for that pair of shoes that you saw online for $20 less. If you can afford it, please buy it from your local running store.
Yeah, and you see people out there all, they're like, "Oh, support the local restaurants, support the local restaurants." And the same goes for this too. So, maybe there should be a campaign for that. Who knows?
Yeah, you're
Um,
going to see a certain percentage of these running stores go out of business, unfortunately.
yeah,
But just like the restaurants, just like everything else.
yeah. Well, not to end on a sad note or anything like that, but I guess we're just gonna wrap it up here a little bit, getting out of time. But Jim, just tell everybody where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Sure. Yeah. You can connect with me at feelgoodrunning.com. That's my website. If you want to contact me, feel free. There's just like you contacted me through the website, through the form or whatever it was that was on there. Please do. I put out my podcast now. I made a commitment the first and third Tuesday of every month. So you can expect a podcast then if you want to put that in your schedule. Most of my podcasts have guests, but I do a short one called a mini-sode, which is a news segment. And I find news stories out there. It's hard to find them now because nobody wants to hear about virtual races or race cancellations. So it's harder to find a news story out there. So it may be spread out on these things. But check me out. If you like it, great. I'd love to have you subscribe through all your services, Apple or whatever you use, Stitcher, Spotify, any of that stuff. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And maybe this won't be the last that we hear from Jim Lynch here on the Run Your Day podcast. Hopefully, so yeah, man, it's a pleasure. I think we got a lot of value out of having you on here. We really appreciate your time, and good luck with everything, sir.
Thanks. And I just want to say that I really enjoy your podcast. You have an extremely positive message when you come on. Sometimes you may not have an idea what you're going to say, but it always comes out very positive, and it's great. I think you got something good going on. So stick with it. Be consistent.
Thank
Just
you.
show up.
Thank you. Just show up. That's the tagline. That's what I'm gonna
Right.
call this. Jim Lynch, just show up. Title of the podcast right there.
There you go.
All right, man. Well, as always, thank you all for joining. Appreciate you guys as always. This is just another episode here. We're going to get back to the normal episodes. I am trying to find more people like the Jim Lynches of the world to come on here. I hope you guys really enjoy this. If you have any comments, you can always go into, if you listen to the show on Anchor, there's a way you can send a voice message as well. So if you have any feedback or you want to know any more about Jim or anything like that, just send me a voice message or you can email. You can actually go to runyourdaypodcast.com and you can submit a form or a question just like Jim said here. So as always, my friends, that's going to wrap up this episode here. Jim Lynch and Dan Hafner signing off. Make it a great rest of your day. Hey, have you ever thought about joining a virtual run challenge? As COVID-19 continues to upend our lives and change our life routines, finding fresh ways to challenge yourself physically can be difficult. I know I'm having trouble with that. It can also be pretty hard to connect with others and find accountability partners for the purpose of fitness as well. That's why we created Runwage Virtual Challenges. Runwage Challenges are a new and exciting way to stay physically active and maintain social distancing. Every challenge takes place 100% online, and you can compete against and engage with runners from all over the world. Best of all, they are the only virtual challenges out there which actually reward participants with real cash. That means you have no excuse for staying inactive during this pandemic. So if you've been looking for a fresh and interesting way to stay active and get your miles in, go to runwageapp.com/virtual challenges to join me and the diverse community of runners already competing. That's runwageapp.com/virtual challenges. Can't wait to see you there.